Yeah. So Andrew, you were talking about tensor processing units and stuff. Olea was asking about the size of the computer. That was it. About whether AlphaZero can be played from a laptop or like a small-ish computer, because I know it's trained on these huge, was it tensor processing units? These
Yeah,
massive
TPUs.
computers.
Yeah.
But
Yeah, it's probably
that's
better to
what
talk
it's
about that
trained
offline, I
from to
guess.
play on. Sorry, go ahead.
It's probably better to talk about that offline.
Better to talk about it offline. Oh, is it trade secrets?
Not exactly, but I mean, it's a little bit sensitive.
Okay, but at least from what I've heard, like what's out there, is that it trains. I mean, because they talk about this on like in Game Changer, right? The guys
Yeah.
they talk, that's publicly known, right? That they use these massive computers. We obviously, neural network, machine learning. So it creates the code, right? And as I mentioned, it's from what I understand, you can correct me because I know you know more about it, Andrew, but it starts with the programming is just, here's how you play the game, and here's how you teach yourself how to win in the game. And then it just figures things out based on the neural network. It just solves that. And it tries to like play itself however many millions of times or whatever. And then it tries to solve chess basically. But then that creates the code, just like a human would create the code for stock or for, let's say, for example, Komodo. And then it would play someone from a regular, like a standard, like a desktop, right? But so essentially the computer is writing the code, which can then be put onto a smaller computer and play in one of those.
Yeah.
Computer
So basically, the idea is like the computer just models everything as a number, right? So it's not generating code; it's generating an equation. You can think of it.
And then that could be put onto one computer though, because it starts with like immense computing power. But then that could be boiled down to a program, like that could be played from a relatively small computer, right?
Yeah. So I mean, it's like think of a mathematical equation. Think of like a line like y equals mx plus b. So like even you like fit like a specific curve, like you can add more like stuff to the equation to make it a better fit. So kind of the bigger the equation you get, the better accuracy you get. Well, if you want it to be fast, you can simplify it, right? So you do like a line like line y equals mx plus b. That's like the simplest, right?
Mm-hmm.
I mean, it's just like a straight line mx plus b. You can like calculate that ahead almost.
So that's it. Okay. And then that's just, okay. So that would essentially, that's what it imprints sort of, or encodes or whatever. Then that goes
So it's
into
like several levels of like of curve matching, right?
Okay.
So if you want like the best fit, you get like a million parameters. It can like really like fine tune the curve, like fit like a sine wave or whatever.
Okay.
Well, if you want like a really basic one, you just get like a straight line, right?
But I
That's
assume
like super fast to
AlphaZero
calculate.
ends up being like multi-layered, right? Like
Yeah.
lots of sections. And then, but that could be put on, so it can still be really strong. I don't know about, for example, if you're analyzing from the cloud on Lichess, it's pulling from it's pulling from Stockfish on some server, right? So it's doing the computation, through a server, and then it's just bringing it to your computer. Although I think, well, what's the deal with, it's using a certain amount of computing power though, because like it can heat up your computer. Like you could choose, how strong the RAM, I think, right? How strong the computer is. That's if it's doing it locally, I guess, as opposed to through the cloud.
That's if it's local, yeah. You can run through the browser on your computer.
Yeah, but you can use the servers too. So, but essentially that's probably a really strong computer in the server where it's doing the analysis, right?
Yeah.
Interesting. Anyway,
I mean, the server can use the full equation, right? If you run it locally, it tries to use like a simplified equation to make it faster, like less expensive.
I see. And then it would be fewer ply in terms of how deep it goes. I guess that would lead to
It'd be
fewer.
less accurate.
You know how it does like 18 ply versus 50 ply, like how many moves it's looking? How deep?
Yeah, and also that's like one way to simplify it, right? Like how far ahead it calculates.
Right. Like if you go on Chess Kid, it'll be like 15 ply because it's just for, for kids, it gives them an idea. Not to say that, not to underestimate them, but it gives you a sense, right? If you blunder. Right. Okay, so let's pull up the games. First, beginning with the topic of moving the H, shoving the H pawn down the board. So it's funny, it's going back to Simon Williams's idea. You guys have probably seen, like he talks about Harry the H pawn. If you've ever
Harry.
seen, yeah, Simon Williams drinking a beer and talking about Harry the H pawn, right? Yeah, so it's like his little join him in the pub, right? So.
Oh, I had a random tangent question.
Uh-huh.
So chess.com released these cat bots recently. Does
Yes.
anyone know what's that about?
Mittens.
which is
Yeah.
ridiculously strong, right?
Yes. Mittens says it has an elo of 1, but nobody was able to beat Mittens. Like all the streamers were getting beat up. And so they're saying that Mittens like was this cute little kitty cat. They're saying it has no soul, that it's evil, So it's just amusing. It's just very funny.
Yeah, I've seen stuff very clickbaity. You can't not click on that.
Yes.
Like next to Nakamura, like petting it with red eyes or
Yes.
something, like little devil eyes or something. Yeah, but I don't know I don't know if it's chess.com's creation, I guess. But
Yeah, is it like a different name or is it just a joke?
Yeah, but it's very strong and no, but maybe they it's like we were talking about last week, Andrew, about level of if you train something with a certain level of aggression, right? To always be super aggression.
Yeah, right.
It's about how that'll affect the final program. But in this case, or maybe they just programmed it to be like crazy, to do, to go for wild attacks and be provocative or something. And then it always it's just very loose. And then it finds a way, kind of like the Stockfish game though, that I'm going to show, where Stockfish just is able to hold actually against AlphaZero's H-Pawn March. But the point is that we're going to compare that to Kasparov's H-Pawn March. I want to pull in a few more as well. I actually had to go digging because I thought if I looked up AlphaZero on chessgames.com, it has 2017 and 2018 games in the 2 matches that it did, like 200 something, like almost 300 games, I think, combined. The ones that they released anyway. So AlphaZero, at least from what I understand, I had exclusive access to those games because at first, at least on chessgames.com, which is a pretty good database, they just had 2017, like it pulled 10 wins from 2017, like 10 notable wins, and the rest were draws, I think. Or maybe it was like 17 wins, something like that. But 10 notable wins, the rest were draws. I think it was like 80 something draws, right? And then, you see just rows and rows of draws in 2018 as well. And I tried to look up the French. I didn't see any French Winaber though, because they're both French Winaber variations. So basically, it's interesting. The openings are almost identical, except for the King F8, as you guys saw. Lynn noticed that from the email. Black's King moved to F8. So Kasparov may have played a better version. And I don't think that that AlphaZero had access to an opening book, if you guys know. I don't think so. So it just came up with the moves. I'm not sure.
Does AlphaZero actually play the opening? Because I know for a lot of computer matches, it's like the opening is pre-programmed.
Right. I'm pretty sure it's not, but you know what it is? I think it's because Stockfish was pre-programmed. So when AlphaZero played, like for example, they played a bunch of Queen's Indian defenses, and AlphaZero kept finding these amazing attacks against the Queen's Indian. And there's that really cool Queen H1 game, like nonchalantly sacks a piece, then just continues its development, sacks a knight on H6, king takes, and then it just goes like bishop E3 and keeps building. And then it does this really cool, like queen swings to the side and tucks on H1 behind H1, G2. Anyway, that's it. So it's crushing the Queen's Indian. But my hunch, I'm pretty sure they didn't program it because it was just very basic programming, so it could teach itself. I don't think it came up with these lines in the French itself. I think what happened is it absorbed it from Stockfish, which already had the lines, and it was probably like, hey, I like that. I'm going to borrow that French Winaber idea from you. And then obviously it made it its own, but it essentially learned the openings, I think, from Stockfish, and that became its the formula it created. So anyway, I double check on that, but I'm almost certain that it wasn't programmed with the openings. I don't think so. Andrew, do you know about that? I don't think it was.
AlphaZero, has no pre-programming.
Yeah, but I think essentially, it sucked it absorbed it from Stockfish. That seems the most plausible, right? Because Stockfish had, and it's like, oh, I don't like that opening, but I know that theory has determined that the French Winaber could be, there's some nice lines, so it's going to take those lines and refine them. Be like, you know what, I'm actually going to create some novelties here and create a better version. And it crushed Stockfish several times in the French as well as white. All right.
Yeah, it depends which version of AlphaZero. The original one just played against itself.
And I don't know what it's done since then, but at least that was what created the foundation, right? Which was amazing.
Yeah, right.
It was also that it wasn't, if I saw somewhere that the first match, there was like a minute per move or some time constraint. I think they talked about that. I read the intro a while ago, but I think there was a time constraint. And with the Monte Carlo algorithm, it basically like the cream will rise to the top quickly. So alpha and the intuition, or from the statistical method of like, rather than, oh, it's point, point 2 center pawn loss or whatever, or improve it better by 0.2 or whatever of a pawn. But this is statistical, so it's more intuitive from the neural network. So yeah, it's just different, and so that would allow it to find the best move faster, which was a huge advantage over Stockfish. So that's kind of a little bit of not a level playing field in that sense, because if you give them both more time, I'm not sure what this. I'm pretty sure the first match was like that. We'd have to, again, all this needs to be verified, but that's what I remember from reading it a few years ago. All right, so Kasparov's H pawn march, and then we'll see. You'll see up to around move 10. It's going to be, or even a couple moves later, it's maybe move 12. It's going to be the same. So we have the French, and that's, do you guys know what this is called? The moment that Black opts to do Bishop B4. So this is Kasparov versus Nikolic. So classical is Knight F6, E5, and this version with Bishop B4. What's that called?
Well, it's there as this windower.
That's whatever, right? That says here that defines the windower, Bishop B4, which is like the sharpest. That's pretty much the sharpest from what I've seen. I don't play the French, but it's very sharp. And Black is willing to give up that dark square bishop for the knight, double the pawns, and
Oh, well, what did he say that's called?
the
I don't know
winnower.
where. Oh,
Oh,
sorry.
the winner.
I don't know
Okay.
what you pronounce with a V or whatever, or winnower. Yeah,
Vinegar.
it's like they say
Winnower.
Nimzovich is like people spell Nimzovich with a W or a V, but I think it's pronounced with a V. No,
Wait,
Not-
is this French defense or German?
maybe the winnower is the pulling of the, yeah, but usually it's multiple, right? It's like the Indian defenses, but then you'll have like a Bogo Indian from Gogulyabov or whatever. So everything gets merged somehow. Although, yeah, other than the Indian defenses, it's very Eurocentric. The openings that have been developed, at least what they name them. So knight C3, bishop B4, E5, C5, A3, bishop takes, B takes. So that's where you get, it just says, let's just resolve this and have you take. But in doing so, it does create a pawn chain for white. Only problem is the doubled pawns, the isolated pawn, the fragmentation of the queen side. And Black, has ideas like queen C7 or queen A5, can put pressure there, maybe rook C8 later. So maybe even bishop A4 happens sometimes. So that's pretty much Black's play. Just put a lot of pressure on the queen side, maybe hit him with F6 at some point, try to stymie, try to thwart white's attack, create his own counterattack. Yeah, they even go C4 sometimes, which looks counterintuitive. That's the bishop A4 stuff. But generally speaking, you want to tear it open. Maybe Black stacks the G pawn, maybe white counter stacks the central pawns. So you'll see a sack happens here actually. For white, he just gives up some center. So knight goes to E7, not allowing the sack line necessarily. Is a line where the queen goes here and takes, and then the rook goes to G8, but they're not going for that. That's where king F8 comes in, just to cover the opening a little bit. Yeah, it's not my expertise, but I've seen it enough. So they can even castle. They can ignore it in many ways. They can just take on D4. That's the counterattack at queen C7. So for example, they allow this, and then you have this brawl, this brawl. It's covered in the pawn structure, the pawn break study I did, where I covered that a while ago. So yeah, this just gets messy, and then they can take again, I think, on here, or just bring out the knight. That gets crazy. Super, like I said, it's really sharp. So white's trying to mix it up a little bit.
Wait, why doesn't Black just castle here?
They can castle, yeah, as you can see in the opening book. They can castle. That's most common, or else they almost pretty common too. It's queen C7. But yeah, castling's fine, especially if you go C4 and don't allow bishop D3. But you got to watch out that bishop D3. Sometimes that's why that's why they do end up bypassing, which is counterintuitive because you take the tension out. But yeah, Nikki, you're saying that's dangerous.
Yeah.
Oh yeah, we've all seen that. We've all gotten crushed by that bishop, right?
Yep.
Yeah, not fun.
And castling like with that queen there.
Yeah, some Greek gift stuff in the works. And there's not even bishop covering. If the bishop covers, you usually want to take back with the H pawn to follow up, but there's not even a bishop to take at the knight. So we can have it through up. So that's why Black maybe won't castle right away. They do go king F8 though. Nikolic is committing pretty quickly. And then there's your march of the H pawn. It's a nice way to play it's interesting concepts against the French, where you can throw your H pawn and you can sack some pawns in the center sometimes. It's very risky, but hey, white wants to launch an attack. I mean, white can play it quietly and build, but again, black will get their counterattack against c3 and so forth. And knight c6 hitting d4, c3, maybe queen b6 or queen c7 or queen a5. So black will have a lot of counterplay. So he's just trying to hit him hard, get his typical attack. Then he goes back to d1. It's a little weird. This has been played a few times in this database, 6 times. Bishop d2 is played a lot, but did not score well. But you got to watch out because again, when they take on d4, you can't take back with the pawn because there's a queen fork on c3. So it's tricky. So he goes back. I guess maybe it was fashionable at some point. He brings the queen back to d1.
Whoa, what?
What's that?
That's crazy.
Yeah, but he provokes. He's pretty happy though with the king going to f8 because black often likes to not show his cards. They want to keep the option open of castling queenside. Maybe the king goes to d7 or something crazy like that, but it's locked up, right? So you can often get away with that. But now the king it's just about as castling. The rook covers h7, but the rook is out of the game. So it could be problematic for black. And if you want to try to castle like by hand, you got to watch out. The bishop's going to hitting those uncontested dark squares because only they have the bishop. A lot of times the next Fischer game sticks the bishop on a3. So again, I don't play it, but I've seen so many GMs playing this stuff. And you might have like rook b1, a little pressure on the queen side, h4, h5 stuff, maybe the g pawn. I mean, classic is that Anand has a game like that where he ultimately gets f5 break. That's a classic break, especially in a regular kind of non-doubled pawn scenario like classical. You'll get f4 in.
Yeah, that f4.
Yeah, you'll see that a lot. Yeah, we've seen that in certain games. All right. So take, stay. But here's the point. You don't lose your rook because you have. Why don't you lose the rook? Because due to the queen being on d1.
Okay, makes sense now. So
well, it's another sack. It's rather than sacking the rook. I mean, yeah, that would be a lot to ask for. What is white sacking? Envision this line with queen c3 check. What happens next?
You're gonna lose your d pawn.
Correct, because you have to go bishop d2. So bishop d2 opens up the queen to cover guard the rook on a1. Then you can take the d pawn. He's opened up the queen to guard the rook, but he's obstructed the d. Got in the way of the d.
So who's your center?
Or the not d file, but it's not a file open, but it's the line leading to on the d file, line leading to d4.
You give it the whole center then, right?
What's that?
Don't you have to lose the whole center then?
Sort of. Well, sometimes you do. In this case, at least he's losing the d pawn. But keep in mind, he's brewing up an attack, especially, he's got a lead in development. He's got a kind of wedge in there. He's got a strong pawn, which often we call it cutting the board in half, kind of cutting in half because the bishop can't really get over there. Laterally, it could be problematic, like certain defense laterally, hard to play f6 because you can take in many cases. So really grabbing some dark squares, putting pressure on dark squares, and we have that bishop. Maybe it can pop on b4 later too, similar to going a3 bishop. So we have a lot of ideas there. We have h4, and of course Kasparov, as you can tell, based on the title, we talk about h-pawn march. So there are two ways the h-pawn march can happen. One is that black will take or white will take and open the line. The second, as you can imagine, the other concept after h4, how else can black respond to h5, h6, the pawn thrust?
Wait, what's the question?
So there are two ways, basically in this attack, there are two ways to, after the queen moves, queen check here, but just in this kind of situation. So this pawn's going to rush forward, right? And again, look at white's got good development. White's pretty much ready to go.
Black can do blockade, I guess.
Blockade, yeah.
Blockade via
h5.
Probably h-pawn.
Oh, you can, right. There's actually, the next section actually covers what happens. You have to look at everything. All response. So what happens at black? This is kind of like Soltis variation of a dragon. And the dragon, white loves to throw the h-pawn forward. So in the Soltis variation, black blocks with h5, just simply blockade, shutting the pawn down, fixing it in place. And then, it gets messy. It's hard to play g4. So it gets very messy. But also, if you keep running, well, sometimes they'll play h6, and you have look at that. You'll have that a lot. And those two pawns create a big space advantage. There's some stuff on the g pawn and whatnot. maybe some knight maneuver to like G4, you know, a lot of good stuff going on in there. A lot of attacking chances. I played against a student of mine. What happened against a student? I ended up going G4 because he was practicing the French. I ended up going G4, G5. I took on H6. He took back. My king was on G1. So it looked scary, but I moved my king over. That's my domain though, kind of. As long as I don't let you really get in. And then I won his H6 pawn and ended up winning in a sparring game. So I just remember that pattern. But keep in mind, that's good, a good squeeze. And then if you let you keep going, again, either in the game they took, and it ruined black's king side, fragmented it, just like white's queen side was fragmented. A little more dangerous with the king on F8 though, committed. So that's kind of what Kasparov wanted. It all is kind of coming to fruition, or at least he gets a good attack out of it, right? But the other thing that can happen, let's say white is allowed to go here again, H5, H6. What's black's other response? The last thing he can do. So if you have black, oops. If you have black and your opponent is shoving their H pawn at you, if they get here, what do? How do you stop it? Or at least slow them down?
I don't know, brings the knights.
G6 looks so weakening. I just can't imagine it's that.
I mean,
Well, it is a move. It
Yeah.
is a move. Well, you have a nice wedge. White's going to really have that dark square control, but G6 is a move. Now there are other games. So there are basically, from what I recall in the book, there's pretty much block right away. But first it covers H5, H6, and either taking or bypassing. But keep in mind that it is sealed up. But the real problem is F6. I mean, even F7, things are rigid. Things are very rigid. And then white wants to ideally, you know, if they play F6, well, that'll really weaken G6. Dark square is going to be hit. E6 pawn is going to be hit on the E file eventually. So yeah, problematic. And those bishops are going to start. That's the thing. White wants the position to open through trades. That's one of the things about giving up the D pawn. It's actually opening the position more. Just C4. Just imagine C4. Trade that off later. Now we got tons of open lines, you know, blasting. Trade this off, you know, got bishop C4, bishop F3 stuff, got bishop E3, a bishop B4, bishop G. So pieces, those bishops are just gonna be shooting into your opponent's position. But anyway, you'll see it happen now. And let me quickly show you the opening because it's almost the same thing. This is the AlphaZero versus Stockfish game. You see where it differentiates? I think Kasparov brought the queen out, I think before H4 or right around that time. So this is where it's different. Jack still takes the pawn, almost exactly the same. The only difference is the queen never went there, but that looks the same. For all intents and purposes, it doesn't make a difference where the queen is. I mean, the queen's still in the same place, but by going there, it did provoke King F8. So in a way, I think I like black's position for sure. I like it better here because if black needs to, they can castle queenside and play. That's not ideal either. But white's attacking force should be more on the king side with that wedge on E5, and they can throw the king side pawns easily. I mean, sure, white has the B file, but it's not that hard to meet. Black has a lot of protection over there. Even B6 is interesting because A4, maybe they do the same thing now, but probably, but they might wait. Yeah, they might bypass later. Like maybe they have something like this and then they end up. Yeah, it's still something. They'll probably just keep it there. Or they might lock it up. So similarly, black can respond if they castle the queen side. I don't know about King D7 anymore. I don't know. Things are open. But black will wait. You know, black will wait. They're probably not going to castle into this pressure here. Just creates a problem on the G file. Because you don't want to play G6 now either. So Nikki, as you're saying, after H6, G6 is not pleasant. But G6 is certainly not pleasant now either, because you can open up lines and white can choose to push just the same. White has the options there. Nice attacking chances, especially again, uncontested bishop. Lines start tearing open. Those bishops are really going to be felt. Maybe even here if the pawn takes. Anyway.
There's something about like, oh, that's nice. The knight there.
Oh, you're right. That we're going to get to that one. This is the one.
Yeah.
This is where it diverges actually. So yeah, now I'm going to go back to this one. But look, it's the same position almost. But in this game, they go knight F5. Sorry, in the other game, they did knight F5 and the king's on E8, and in this game the king's on F8 and they go knight BC6. Nikolic goes knight BC6. And what were you saying, Nikki? Sorry.
Yeah, no, I always get it confused, but I know like sometimes like when black castles and like sometimes like you could play F5 and then they en passant you and then you take back within it, but it might be a different line.
No,
I'm
no,
not
that
sure.
yeah, in general. Although I don't know, the inclusion of H4 might be
Yeah, that looks a little.
no, but
iffy.
still, it's still calm because even if you do that later on, white can still try that, or maybe white goes for G4. That's very
Mhm,
common. Maybe
mhm.
bishop's on H3 in some lines I've seen. Because again, mostly I've actually prepared a lot of my students. I mean, I encourage my students to play the French. You play the French, Nikki, right?
Yes.
You already play the French. Yeah, I encourage you because it's imbalancing. It's very solid, and if white pushes a lot, black can strike, similar to the Caro-Kann. Caro-Kann actually get more imbalanced after exchange variation. There's a lot of people like that exchange variation. So
Yes.
E4, going
Trying
back.
to,
A lot of people like that kind of boring exchange variation, but this is symmetrical in a Caro-Kann. In a Caro-Kann, it's not quite symmetrical. Nice Ferrugia win. Good, I think. Right. Anyway, move 13. There we are. I'm just gonna mute it real quick because
I just don't need to
Did
mute.
somebody
I'm just gonna
mute?
mute it. I got it. I got you.
Okay, sorry.
All right. Yeah, feel free to unmute after. All right. So knight takes e5. Yeah, you guys usually hear me, although the kids are out right now with my wife. Okay, so knight takes e5. Yeah, last time it was pretty noisy in there.
I'm sorry.
If you guys
I don't
remember.
mean to sound rude.
What's that?
I don't mean to sound rude. My apologies.
No, I know. I said, yeah, I said it too. I noticed. I know, but last time it was noisy in my place. G takes h6, bishop takes check. So this certainly looks good for Kasparov, right? He's given up both of his central pawns though. So it's he's taking a lot of risk. So, but again, I like the fact that the king's on f8. Or I really like the fact that it's going to g8 and the rook is entombed on h8. So this is certainly a nice attack that came out of the h-pawn push. And he just abandons his center to get it going. But keep in mind that, well, okay, let's evaluate this. It's not over yet. There's still some play left for both sides. I mean, Kasparov needs to prove this, otherwise he can certainly lose the endgame. So what are the imbalances? Let's evaluate this position. What are the imbalances here?
Well, white has a bishop pair.
Yeah.
Black has more pawns.
black has 3 pieces and a pawn all on the E file, which well, depending on the situation, that can be a problem or an asset.
Okay, so I was writing this down. So bishop pair for white. Black I'll say 2 pawn plus. Is up 2 pawns. It looks if it's good. Okay, what else do we have, Leah?
The 3 pieces and the pawn on the E file.
There's quite a buildup on the E file. This is kind of
Feels kind of
that could be
congested.
aesthetically. What's that?
It feels kind of congested,
Yeah.
especially
But that's-
since
Go ahead. Sorry.
the E. No, well, they're on the E. I should say the E7 knight is undefended.
True,
And-
you never know. The bishop might come back to G5. That could be
Yes.
maybe there could be like a queen check. Although it could go to G. Probably wants to go to G6. But there's nothing. Yeah. So there's certain you're pointing out something around the congestion. But there is nice centralization. I really like black centralization, and that's by virtue of the taking the central pawns, and as they're taking them, naturally they centralize. So black has that. King positioning is strange. Very awkward for both. Well, more awkward for black. So black has nice centralization.
And the king is really in a funky place because he can't move anywhere.
He's stalemate. It's a stalemate, quote stalemate, not real stalemate. But yeah, he's in a mating net. Black king mating nets. Just very shorthand.
The E2 bishop is pinned.
True. Just all the features. Yeah. So we're mentioning kind of positional as well. Positional, potentially weaknesses or imbalances, as well as tactical. That could become tactical. Oh, wait. Okay. So you talked about loose, NE7, pinned, So this could be relevant tactically. Oh, sorry, it's kind of hard to see. Pinned bishop on e2. Okay,
Why?
let's talk about the pawn structure and how that might relate to piece activity. You mentioned the bishop pair, that's important. Bishop pair / good dark square control for white because they have the uncontested dark squared bishop. That's important. I would mention that as well, which we kind of got or implying or got to earlier. What else about, let's talk about pawn structure then and how that affects piece activity.
Yeah, if black trades down, black's happy,
Go here.
I think.
Yeah. So black has winning endgame prospects. Should be a winning endgame if they can get there. So white
Yeah.
wants middle game attack. Although black has a lot of counterplay now, as we're going to see in the AlphaZero game. Stockfish got tons of counterplay with the piece activity and was able to hold it. Amazing. Well, that was an incredible. Again, the H pawn still shows you it still created a nice attack for AlphaZero. But in that case, it was able to Stockfish held. But it's pretty cool. Even though sometimes, you know, I like to look at wins for sure when I'm preparing something. I want to see how do they win. But of course, it's also good to see how that the side you're preparing for in the French, for example, see how if we're preparing for white, see how black won, see how black was able to draw. So it's fun just to see the resources, but you're going to see patterns for both sides that way. And you'll know what not to allow them to do. Like in certain lines where pawn to c4 actually kicks the bishop from d3 and black gets good counterplay on the queen side. In those cases, actually, a lot of times they will get a quick pawn storm and break through. And like, again, black's got those pawns trying to create a pass pawn there. It's like if white's play is stymied, then similar to an endgame where white just may be worse or losing. Okay, so black has, well, I'm going to say winning endgame prospects because you just never know. Because white, they may have to cough up some material to do so. The advantage of having extra material defensively, defensive resources, you can throw them in the fire to survive. And then there's the awkwardness of the rook, as we mentioned. Rook h8, basically non-piece, right? If anything, it's congesting the king. So I don't know, cornered, whatever, stuck, pigeonholed. Okay, that's affecting the black king, although there is knight g6, and there's no more h4, h5 to hit the knight out of g6. So there's that. There is a defensive resource, and so there's like knight g6 defense, one of the knights to g6 defense. There is that prospect. The other things to evaluate, to consider in our evaluation. By the way, I saw a book that just came out. I don't know how recent it was, but I saw some tweet about it. Someone kind of brought me to their page. What's his name? But they wrote, co-wrote, they're an FM, how to evaluate like a grandmaster, because there's a book, How to Think Like a Grandmaster. Have you guys seen that? How to evaluate?
I have it.
Is it good?
Well, I bought it over the holidays and it seems to be missing in action amongst all the other books since I have, well, I think I have a very ridiculous amount of books in my space, so I need to go on an expedition to find it. But based on what I saw, it has a method that I think will work well with me. So I need to find it.
Yeah, that sounds interesting. And then there's another book that I came across. I know I saw it when I was on his page. Like, you just find interesting things like that. The other book was what's it called? Creativity in Chess or something. Actually, it's by a Goprinishvili, like something like that. Like there's Nona Goprinishvili from Georgia that we've looked at. I don't think they're related, but there's another Goprinishvili, I think, who wrote that one. It's like creativity. I forget, something like creativity in chess. Which is, so it's like the idea is that it's tactics, but there's like apparently a cult following because it's offbeat tactics kind of, so creative. So not your typical tactical book on, your main themes. Okay, so this is pretty good. The only other thing I'd mention, so king position, white's king is probably safer. Although the knight's going to get taken on f3 and the pawns are going to get doubled. But when they get doubled, it opens you get an open G file. So there's tons of imbalances. So then the king would arguably be a little less safe having to double these pawns. Because now, I mean, if it wants to, it can castle kingside be pretty snug. Not if the pawns are doubled, that just like by removing this pawn makes it tougher for the black king, objectively speaking, in the long run. even if we don't have an immediate tactic. Okay, beyond that, little fragmentation, I'd say over here, still fragmented, you know, because this was here, we had the issues earlier with the fragmented pawns and doubled pawns, isolated A and C pawns, right? Then we have these which are closer to, you know, connected. We have C file pressure from black. And what is one more thing that white might try, which I think he did do.
Well, if the queen sacks the knight and the pawn sacks the queen, then the rook would just move to G1 and the king is checkmated.
Wait, can you be specific about which one then? If which one sacks?
Okay, you said that the queen, if the queen was to sack F3.
Oh, if the knight takes or if the queen takes?
Okay, no, okay. If the knight takes.
Yeah, I may as well take with the knight, right? If you take
either one, and the pawn takes him back, then the rook
I see what you're saying. And that's where you'd have the rook G1 stuff. Although,
yeah, and that's
although there is one, it's almost mating.
Almost checkmate.
But black has one defense against this G file stuff. What's that?
The knight.
There are two resources, exactly. They would use the second knight.
Yeah.
So that's where you kind of use that as sort of a makeshift pawn. I mean, kind of, I would call it bishop the makeshift pawn usually. If the bishop is there, it's going to serve that function of the diagonal control. And hey, maybe it'll attack laterally, but the knight will kind of clog it up effectively and stop not get mated. But again, that's where you'd want to be able to chuck a pawn at it. But this is different because we've already used that pawn. It served its purpose. But, you know, maybe we can, I don't know, maybe get the queen in here, a lot of attacking lines.
Yeah.
But the other thing is there's a half open B file. So I mentioned the half open C file. So well, technically black has a half open G file, but I don't think they're utilizing that anytime soon to attack white, right? They're the one that's going to be attacked. I mean, white can always swing a rook, do a rook lift. But the interesting thing is by using the B file, can't we do a rook lift too? We have a lot of attacking prospects. So really tactical, it's not quite tactical. It might become tactical, but it's more like attacking in terms of being able to swing your forces and marshal your forces toward your opponent's king. So what can we do with the B file?
Stick the rook on it.
Yeah, when you stick the rook on it, you hit B7, make it more difficult for the bishop to defend. Maybe we chuck the C pawn at them to go, again, that queen A4. I would love to get my queen on E8. So if they trade knights, like you might have some tricky, like rook B4, kick the queen. And then you have queen A4, like C4, hit the D5 pawn, queen A4. So you can't just imagine you'd be creative in terms of your potential X-rays. That's a mate. So you never know. You never know. Possible. I wouldn't rule it out, right? But then there's the B file stuff. We could go to B4 or B3, and that'll boot the queen with tempo. And then we can work our way over here. So maybe we get both guys coming in, whether it's to G1 or to H3 to G3. So this is what you want to think of, I'd say, conceptually. Now, none of that, maybe none of it happens, maybe half of it happens, maybe all of it happens, but some combination of these factors could certainly happen. And then as for our opponent, they're up 2 pawns, but they don't have too much other than the fact that the bishop's pinned and knight takes F3, doubling our F pawns, but that's double-edged because it opens up our rook and we can throw the second F pawn at them with like F4, F5 in the future. So certainly I like white's attacking prospects, which is why he won. I'm not sure black may have been able to hold, but yeah, they're up 2 pawns, but white's attack may be worth a piece or something or more. So half open, I just mentioned finally the half open G, and I'll just say G and B. And then we have the rook. They're basically just rook lift ideas. It's triangle for ideas. Okay. If you see triangle in the glyphs, right, annotations, you can use triangle for idea of, although usually that's implied anyway if you show a line, it's the idea of. Yeah, just shorthand stuff. So this is nice. We can see it's a nice attack for white, but black has 2 pawns. And some centralization, although Leo, you said they're congested. But as you saw briefly in the other game, when I showed the next move, diverged with knight F5. As I think the other with knight BC6, I think was this game, right? If I recall, and then knight F5 is the other game. So you end up getting the same thing, but you can quickly see these knights are just coming in. So it's not that bad in terms of congestion. And if you take on F3, you might be able to bring the other one to D4. You might shove your D pawn down the board. So you have central stuff, central play. You got 2 central pawns, right? So if black can consolidate, and then maybe if black consolidates enough, this rook just stays there, like in a king's gambit or something, or in a or a king's Indian. Sometimes the rook just stays in the corner and then attacks later. So let's say black survives and they go f6, king f7. So again, you don't need to calculate this, but it's the way I would view it is it's conceptual, right? That's how they talk about grandmasters often think about things. I don't do it as well as them, but you can see I'm looking at things like this, thinking about potential avenues of attack, thinking about potential trades. Now, when the rubber meets the road, we're going to say, all right, let's look exactly at what happens. But it's kind of like say when your opponent's thinking, you might want to just look at these strategic ideas, and then when it's your move, you go concrete. I think that's what Kotov says and think like a grandmaster, if I recall. But that's kind of known, kind of a concept. Maybe Bofinick said, but it's kind of known as in general to generalize. But yeah, we have a lot of stuff crowded, just as crowded as black's pieces here, right? So we have a lot of stuff going on. Bishop pair. Yeah, we got some fragmentation of the pawns, dark square control, mating net around the king. You can't move. Pinned piece on e2, loose piece on e7 for what it's worth. Back rank mate problems for black until the bishop develops. You got a rook on b1. It's not so easy. You might not want to let the rook to the 7th. So tons of stuff. So yeah, these are all conceptual. Put it together to get a holistic understanding, try to evaluate. But ultimately, the evaluation will depend on the specific lines. But at the same time, the lines are, they stem from the position, right? Tactics flow from a superior position. But it's not tactic. This is not purely tactical rook b1, but it's more mobilization. It's prelude to an attack. It's a prelude to an attack that can lead to tactics. Does that make sense, guys?
Yes.
There's a lot in there. There's a lot embedded in this position. That's why I figured let's evaluate. There's a lot of stuff going on here. Clear. Okay. So what's the next move? We are on. So he let him take with the bishop. I mean, he could have gone g6, but as Nikki said, that's not so appealing. And we can see stuff like this coming. That's not pleasant. A lot of dark squared pressure. And again, I'd like to get that queen in there later. Stuff like that. I mean, that's a cheapo, but you never know. Lots of stuff aiming at black's position, including a bishop now on the diagonal. And yeah, clearly, I mean, he must be better here. I mean, he's certainly a huge initiative. But again, let's see if his opponent could wiggle like an amazing Karpovian type defenses, where he's like, all right, I've taken some pawns and I'm going to hold and I'm going to force a queen trade and I'm going to win. And as you can see, he does get this in, but it's not clear. I was a little surprised. I'm like, does he want that? It's not clear that this is better for Nikolic, right? Or if anyone Nikolic, I don't know. Does anyone know? I don't know where the accent is, but that should be a sh at the end. Yeah, so but he has the G file now. The G file has become, it went from a half open for black technically. Now it's an open file now to use for the rooks. So this is pretty dangerous. So now we have the bishop on h6. We got B file pressure, lateral pressure, swings, G file pressure. The king can stick the king on f1 and go bishop d3 or something. Okay, let's throw this at him. Why not? Let's try and get f5 in some point. Check. Now we want to move anyway. So we both move our king into the f file in this game, but our king is safer. No reaching our king really anytime soon. Well, how does he carry this attack out though? Let me move it away from the move so I can just double check and you guys could try to, let me just make it all home in a bit on the board. And then you guys can try to guess some of the follow-ups. And so now he's created like this weird stonewall setup, I mean, that F pawn's kind of scary because if he has to take completely fragmented, there's that queen again. Bishop threatening mate, bishop b6, then like take b7, and all sorts of good stuff is in the works. Right? Bishop c4 is coming after the rook move. So f5, he feels the need to block. Obviously, it's very passive though. King's a little more exposed actually. Might be able to break through on e6 or come this way. Actually, you might even have I think he ends up winning this way because now g7's open. We just need a rook on the 7th or queen on the 7th, then it's pretty much game. No obstruct. That's why the problem with moving your f pawn is that you often get more in more trouble. On it's happened to me. Actually, Alan Savage did it. He passed away recently, unfortunately. But I remember that game, Alan Savage. I decided I didn't need to, but I decided I think I played f4 to hold e5. Then he found a way in, and his rooks came in and got me in big trouble. He's one of the really strong correspondence player, amazing endgame player. Yeah, I finally drew him once. I think he got me like at least twice. I had good games though, but he beat me in that rook endgame. He beat me in a king and pawn endgame. So yeah, he's really strong endgame player. But I was doing well in that game, and then I opted for the f pawn push, and then he got me in there. So watch out, as you can see, if with f5, you got the lateral attack, much more open. Rook b3,
Mm-hmm.
6, a lot of good stuff in this game. And there you go, boom, c4. c4 happens now. And now he's threatening to simply take the d pawn, win the d pawn, but more importantly, blast it open.
Mm-hmm.
Pressure, hitting b7. He'd probably be happy in many cases to sack the exchange to get the queen in. Although there's queen f7, but still there's stuff like that in the works. Maybe the other rook comes, maybe he just leaves his king there, and rather than going through b1, the rook just lifts. And then maybe if you do sack the exchange, the other one comes in next or something. There's so many ideas. D-file pressure takes, okay, this is just win. It's got to be winning. Look at this computer evaluation. Plus, you can see it going up, +4, +3.8. So yeah, it's a winning position. It's just too much now. Now we can quickly look just at it for curiosity's sake. Let's go back several moves and see if it thinks that black is, okay, this is early. It's just out of the opening, right? But let's see, once we get into the middle game a bit, let's see if it thinks it's dead equal, which is obviously equal chances, but it means black's in the game. It wants, wow, now that's not a human move to go f6, because now it's opening things up. There's like, this move looks kind of scary. But hey, as I said, at least you get the rook in the game. Your king can tuck here. It's not the end of the world, but it is a little unpleasant. Yeah, this is hard for a human to defend, though, I think. But there are resources. So yeah, that's where it thought that black was still in the game, but I'm sure soon enough. Yeah, it does not like the capture, though. How about the push? I don't think it likes this, but maybe not as bad as the capture. Similar, it doesn't like either one.
Yeah.
Bishop c3. Oh, bishop c3 hits the diagonal. Yeah, that immediately exploited.
Yuck.
You could just check real quick to see where it says you went wrong. I mean, obviously Kasparov's not a computer, but he can play pretty close. At least the older can, at least deep blue. Yeah, now it's saying he's up like 2 points, and as you can see, this is not healthy. So yeah, and now we are where it says he's winning, +3 and more. Okay, so let's see the finish, then we can transition to the other game. Yeah, there we go. So that's winning. That's nice. That's nice. So it's not an exchange sack. Do you see why this is not an exchange sack? If the bishop takes and we sack the, for example, here we can take, give him the rook, but it's not for the bishop. Why is it not an exchange sack there?
Is
Because the pawn can take the pawn and open up that spot.
And then the queen's going to come in. Queen's going to
Yeah.
get access, right?
Yeah.
And when she gets here, she plop in the center, smack in the center. What's the queen doing? Very powerful position. We love to bring the queen out, just as long as she doesn't get chased all over the place. But we love to have the queen. If you can get away with it, you stick the queen right in the center. So
Well,
Yeah,
what's
X-rays the king.
I see the whole board, David.
you don't see the whole board?
No, I only see it from 4 to 8.
Oh, is it zoomed in? Because I have the entire. Can you guys see it?
Yeah, I see the whole board.
Let me make it
Nice.
big. Let me go back to where I was then. Unless you zoomed
Okay,
in.
okay, maybe it's my thing. I don't think.
Maybe it's zoomed. Maybe you have it zoomed in or something. How about now? Wait.
Oh, yeah, now I can see.
Oh, okay. So if I go back, then this under change. If I go back and just border it, can you see it now?
Yeah, I can see
Oh,
it.
okay. Oh, it wasn't full. It was probably minimized. So, not maximized. Okay. So rook e8. Just very natural, How many? He's not even currently. He's only down like a pawn. Doesn't matter. And he wants to still sink in with the rook, infiltrate soon. That bishop is just sitting there.
Yeah,
The
that
king is-
guy's a
That
beast.
bishop just has his say in there. What's that?
He's a beast.
He's a beast.
Then that opens up the queen to go to A4 if he doesn't push the pawn down. Or if he's not kept.
Yeah.
Yeah.
You might have stuff. Yeah. You hit the rook. You might even have queen takes a7. And then if the bishop moves, you could bring the other. Yeah, there's so much stuff. There's just
A lot of stuff in there.
You're not
Yeah.
worried about this. You don't really have to worry about this if the queen could come in a little bit, but the rook's covering g2. Even if the queen got to h3, just go back again. She's not getting to h3 now. I mean, if the rook goes up, but you don't have to calculate it. It's just like, if you know that this doesn't do anything, then you're fine. But you want to know that, just like we knew as black, you should know that queen a4 is always in the air after c4. So you see how it's a multi-purpose move, because c4, take d5, smash that center, destroy the light squares. The only thing that holds them is the bishop, which we're willing to sack for. That's where I was getting at this, though. Do you guys see why it's so good? Let's say the pawn takes, looks less palatable to take. It's more attractive to like snatch a bishop. Well, let's say it's a pawn. Would you snatch the pawn? What happens? What's the line? Just a little tactical moment that justifies this. What if the bishop takes back?
Oh, bishop takes back.
Take with the
then
queen.
Queen takes.
And then what happens?
Uh,
Oh, wait,
king-
wait, hold on. Wait. No, I was originally looking at it from here, though. We were calculating originally. We didn't finish this line. That's what I was originally talking about. You'd have a 4xing.
Yeah.
so
That's-
bishop comes
that's
down to
almost-
A1.
I think that's a forced mate. Let's
Oh,
see.
no, I'm gonna check.
I think it's a forced mate because check. If the knight blocks, check. Well, yeah, you can't move the queen because mate here. You can't move the knight. So that's a mate in 1. There you're working in the back rank. The G
Yeah.
file and the congestion there. Well, yeah, that's all they don't have queen back because the bishop, even there, it probably mating quickly. Well, it's bad. Too much.
Yeah,
Wait a
it's
second.
Yeah, I'll take
Wait a
white.
second. No, this is mating 1.
Oh, yeah.
That's nice. There, your bishops have, you feel the power, the influence of your bishops. Like I said, C4 takes. It didn't come down to queen A4, but something on the light squares. And again, that's in addition to your dark square. We have the 2 bishops. That's a perfect
Yeah.
we have 2 bishops versus no bishops now. But even that's why we're very happy to sack the exchange, because we don't need their bishop in there defending. We want to get rid of it. Now, I think, let's see. You guys rook G1, B5. Again, if they had taken, I don't think I have a problem with taking on D5 still. That's our break. It's got to be our breakthrough. They do have this,
Yeah.
and we do have this, because it's still mating. It's a nice mating pattern. You guys see that? They have to do something.
Yeah.
They can't take the queen. It's mating in 2. See that?
Yeah.
Crisscross.
Mhm.
It's nice, huh? So a lot of times you see the pattern with the queen invading and then the bishop coming in like a queen side attack. But yeah, I don't know what they do.
That was sweet.
That's really
It would have
good.
been sweet. Is that the way it actually went?
Almost. It's still a breakthrough on the light squares.
Does this all stem from G6, that pawn weakening move?
Well, you can see some of the features. You wouldn't have had the rook G1 and bishop H6 stuff. They wouldn't have the same power, because now that they traded, it gave you the G file, and there's the bishop on H6, and then you combine that with your central breakthrough, plus the option for bishop C4. That's why they played B5 most likely. So they take away the sting of bishop C4. Not to say the bishop can't take later, but it's the immediate follow-up, like with the mate. It's like, I don't like that mate idea. Let's not let that happen, right? So you can see why I did it. But then the rook takes. Well, problem is the rook's coming down now.
Yeah, the rook's coming down now.
And if he doesn't do anything, I think you just go rook down here. If the rook goes
Right.
up, back, and then the queen goes back, and you mate because the pin. So Andrew, we got the bishop on H6, the rook on G1, combined with our central breakthrough, leading to lateral ideas and diagonal ideas. So basically, every single piece is maximized. His king is terribly placed. Congestion in here. His rook never got to come in. So it's just a crush. Terrible.
I mean,
game.
the king's been there for a long time too, him and the rook.
Yeah, he needed to go to. That's why the computer saw how strong it was. That's why I opted for the king F7 stuff. Okay, similar finish. What made him resign after this? Let me grab some. I'll be right there as you guys are solving that.
Well, why? Because
Rook
Just-
take bishop.
which bishop?
The one on maybe B7, and then if rook takes back, then we can fork them.
Rook to B7.
Yeah, like if you do like Rook, I don't know if that's exactly mating, but you could play
It's-
rook takes
it's-
b7.
Rook takes
winning.
b7, yeah. Then queen
Rook
d5
takes
after that.
B7.
And then what does the piece count after that?
Rook takes b7, rook takes b7, queen d5,
Queen
check.
d5, yeah, check.
What am I missing? Yeah, we're winning
So after
material.
you take, what are you gonna be up? We're just down a pawn right now.
Rook
Okay.
takes
What are
Rook
we gonna be up in?
queen to D5, check, check. Okay, so then the king still has somewhere to go after that, Nikki.
Not much, but yeah.
Not much, not
For now,
much.
but in terms of simply materially, are we ahead materially after we take on B? We're gonna get B7 back, and we're close to mating.
Yeah.
Dominant position.
Yeah,
It's exposed. And again,
slightly,
our
I
king
have-
is nice, and our king is pretty snug on F1, especially because the light squared bishop covers the diagonal.
But if we
And
play
if we need to, we can
d5
always
or
go back to you.
something,
What's
and
that?
that queen gets down to a1. Oh yeah, you said we're snug on a1 though. Okay, so if she goes down to a1 after all that's said and done, then yeah,
Oh, king G2 maybe.
okay.
It's not. Wait. Let's see. Try.
but queen can
Well, the
go.
problem is though that they're getting
B3.
checked and everything.
Yeah,
Well, yeah, you
that
just
we're
need to
gonna have a
shave it
lot
off.
of.
You just need to like go here and here, but you gain a tempo. The knight can go knight h4. Go to h4. Check.
Mm.
You go
Well,
here.
the queen
Then they
go
run
to-
out of checks, and you're about to mate them. So
the queen can go to B3 as well.
yeah, and that's where we're getting close to mate also. But so the question though, in terms of winning material, how many are we ahead any pieces after we take on B7 and do that combo?
You take. You still got your two bishops, a rook and a queen.
What do they have? You took the rook and the bishop. The rook is taken with
Right, so they
Maybe.
will have, what do they have now? They have the rook that's H8 that's useless. Well, he's not-
finally it's coming.
he's not
Finally,
using
it might come out. Probably
Yeah,
king,
he may-
king might have to go back and create a traffic jam again. And what else does black have?
the queen and knight.
So rook, queen, and knight. What's the piece that we have that you could just cancel it out? That's easier because we have a rook. We both have a rook. We both have a queen. We both have a knight and bishop. What's the one thing that we have that we'll look at the minor pieces?
We got the extra bishop.
we
Extra
have the
bishop,
So we have
yeah.
a bishop pair. We have this marauding. What is it?
Yeah, I don't know how to pronounce that one. ever.
Marauding.
Marauding?
sounds-
That's it. MARAUD. Yeah, marauding bishop pair. Going
Yeah,
to
it's good. That's a
plunder
good word for
the
it
night.
too.
Yeah, I was thinking about what's the word. I think that's the word. Yeah,
It's a perfect word for it too.
they're swarming. But I was like thinking about it the other day, especially if the bishop is like they're looking to plunder. It's like I forget the definition was like along the lines of looking to steal things also. So it's like they're trying to plunder pawns or something. All right. So yeah, that's it. And then he resigned after. No, he didn't. The thing is, wait. No, again, that was if. What was the line? It was if he had done that, which he didn't. Right, another sideline. This is if. Where is it? This line, right? No, wait. No, he did. No, he did end up taking the. He did end up taking. Yeah, I was right here.
Okay.
That's the move that made him resign. It did happen. So then he would do this. Then you take with check. That's even better.
Okay, so we don't have to worry about any. Oh yeah, and the queens now can't check us, so that's good.
You're actually either gonna, right? Even if the check, though, again, they'll run out of checks pretty quickly. Let's just say theoretically. Well, then if they don't, but you're about to take with check as well, so they'd have to go here. Might even have a better version of this, but yeah, you just take. There's nothing here. Check. You have to go here. They have a check. We have many ways to win. But again, there's no more checks now.
Okay.
We actually get our king pretty snug for now. And then, yeah, I mean, the king is going to get checkmated very soon. You can check on both either. You can't stop both checks. Yeah, you can see it's done. And if he goes this way, this way, if he goes, yeah, he has to go there, or he can get hit by rook checks. So game over. Pretty nice, huh?
Yeah, that's really nice.
So this is the final position is this. No, sorry, he didn't. Yeah, he resigned after this because that's a tactic. And then if he doesn't take back, we still have the extra bishop, and we can then we can go for the winning endgame, although we'll probably make or way more material. Okay, now as for AlphaZero, we saw this position that was achieved. So again, what's the opening called after the French? Now, a lot of people like to push.
Whenever.
Yeah, a lot of people like to push, but you'll see GMs tend to play knight c3, really. They can go knight d2, Tarrasch. If you look at the master games, knight c3 is knight c3, knight d2 are by far the most common. Knight d2, same idea, but it's like an anti-Whenever, I guess you'd say, because same idea of guarding, but it's way less aggressive. And you could do e5. There are some decent lines, as you can see. It's the first two score much. They actually score about the same. This scores more wins for black. So all the same 36. And in this database, I don't think it's comprehensive, but WeChat gives you pretty good idea. And then everything else, like e takes d5 is nothing. Doesn't do anything. Okay, so it's timid.
Yeah, it's like equalizing immediately, they say.
Pretty much, yeah. I mean, white has the first move, might be minuscule, but black can mix it up and go. There are like lines where black can go knight c6 and bishop out somewhere and castle queenside and try to attack. Yeah. Okay, so e5, 7, 3, takes, same thing. Strike. You want to, I mean, in French, you almost always want to strike. Actually, I've seen some Petrosian games where it's like b6 and a6 or something. It's kind of, you don't have to go, but you almost always play c5 to strike. What's that?
Who
Wait,
is
this
Alpha,
goes from.
or who?
Oh,
or what is
AlphaZero.
Alpha?
Oh, this time it doesn't say. AlphaZero has white.
So black is, I guess.
It didn't pull it up. It didn't pull up the names automatically. What's that?
Okay.
Yeah. Oh, you know why? It's because I couldn't find, right. I was trying to, what I was saying earlier is I was trying to find it. And I was looking at all those games in terms of the number, a lot of draws. I was searching for Whenever, didn't see it. And the other ones were classical, knight f6, knight back to d7, after e5, then f4. So this is just to reiterate, just make sure you got, since we're on it, we can learn other things.
So this goes from Whenever defense to advance.
Yeah, it's a version of, I think it's the main line of the winner, but this is the classical variation. And then I think this is Steinitz. Yeah, this is the Steinitz with f4, and that's what they did before. And that's what they did, some famous games that were played. But I could only find these. So I think what I was getting at, is that I think in Game Changer, they had exclusive access to some of them from what it seemed. And then maybe the rest were shown later, maybe not all of them, but they did have access to write the book. Okay. To the 2018 games. Okay. Yeah, really great book. I just love it. And I love the way that they can explain how this thing to the best. And we've talked about that before. The computer itself is not to the point. Again, that's humans needing to program the computer about how to teach you. The computer, just because it's really amazing, doesn't mean it can explain what it's doing automatically, right? It needs the language for that. So we've talked about that, right? With explainable AI. But this is where the humans do the best job they can. It's kind of like in that case, the computer is only as good as the human input, or maybe as ethical as or unethical as the human input, I guess. Or representing the real world is probably like with racial profiling of those systems, right? Of the police systems and stuff. So C5, H4, Queen C. Yeah, I heard something good on. I listened to NPR. It quick news source when I'm driving. But yeah, they were talking about, it's just the question of the next decade is how ethical, like which aspects of AI are, well, everything's ethical, but which are the biggest ethical questions in terms of how we choose to program or utilize them. But of course, many humans will be unethical, so that's the danger. No, it's not. I think it's not like the computers will decide to do unethical things. I think it's humans, like people trying to clone humans and stuff. That's humans choosing to do that, right?
Right.
So takes, Queen C3 check. So same thing.
I see a cute little baby. Hello. He's learning fit. He's learning early.
Yeah.
There he is. Hey, Connor, I see.
Yeah, it's coming.
Connor's
Yeah,
has
Connor.
early studies.
Yeah. He'll just hang out for the whole class sometimes.
So cool.
Right? So we're fun. So okay, here's the divergence.
Oh,
Knight f5 instead of knight. Actually, the only games they're showing here is the knight f5 move, which is what Stockfish did. And then the opponent, Kasparov's opponent, went for knight bc6, right? But that's not even, so again, that just shows you how it's not comprehensive at all. There are 24, no, wait, am I missing it? No, I think all 24 games, right? Am I missing the move? Nope, that's it. I guess this is book, right? This is book. Some interesting sack line, which must have, how it's been played across decades, yeah. 90s, 2000s, I mean, 2020s. It looks like it was bigger in the 80s to 90s. It looks like it's something that came out of the 80s, late 80s. So, you know, contested theory at the time, written about in chess journals. So now white goes king f1, not black. Now it's white who moves the king over. But I mean, I think you can see that you want the rook on the h file behind the h pawn. And Leia, as you said, we don't like the pin. And this is AlphaZero, but Theo Schmidt did the same thing and got a draw. H6, and there it is. So it's almost the same thing. The king's on it. So white's king is on. I should have put that position. In one case, it's E1,
Yeah.
F8. Now it's king F1, king E8. It's funny, right?
Yes.
And both knights are centralized, which was no. And in the other one, the knight stayed on E7, which allowed for the knight G6 defensive stuff.
I have a question.
Uh-huh.
Can you do a march of the A pawn and get the same results, or is it only the H pawn?
No. I think it covers both, but the H pawn tends to be toward the king. Kind of like if you play. It's kind of like if you play a bird, you're more likely maybe to get a king side attack. And if they go queen side, well, then they might get in more danger because the king's more centralized and want to play c4. But yeah, you can go a4, a pawn thrust for queen side attacks, or if the king is castled queen side, might be that combined with like a c pawn break to open the c file, have the b file pressure, open the a file, right? So yeah, you can certainly do it if they're castled queen side, or just for a natural, you know, against the Sicilian. Black wants to go a6, b5, a6, they weaken b6, you go a5, you grab the b6 square.
Also King's Indian, right?
Yeah, Benoni's happens.
Yeah.
For
Okay.
example, in the Benoni, black goes a6, you try and go a4, a5. That's why they should go a6, b6. So a5 is met by b5. Because imagine you're like this and you go a4, you'll take en passant. So the idea is to go a6, b6. So you'll meet that with closing. That's similar to a defensive game I think we've looked at by Petrosian, where he had the pawns. He was like this. So he plays a6, and he's ready to meet, you know, any opening of the lines by bypassing it. He goes here and bypasses b5. So he's able to seal the king pawn chain like this. So anyway, but yeah, you could certainly do both. Knight takes e5, even if the king's not there for queen side attack. So queen takes. Oh, see many differences. And AlphaZero does not. So AlphaZero didn't let the king go to f8, but I guess it didn't really care because it's like, look, you want to be on e8? I don't care if you go queen side. It's just not. It's just that Stockfish was better than Kasparov's opponent, and that it didn't walk into king f8 to g8. But Stockfish, AlphaZero did not induce that with queen g4 and go queen g4 and back. So I guess kind of one of the differences is because of this didn't happen, both knights centralized. I guess that was maybe a tempo difference. It didn't end up being completely that different, but yeah, it's weird. Because let's see, this is move 15. Let's cross check that real quick. If we go around let's check move 15 right now. So move 15, he already has the H pawn rolling. So it actually did, no, so Kasparov wasn't, the queen g4 thing did, well, king f8 had to be played. Yeah, so it didn't really cost Kasparov, or rather, it didn't cost him much time. Yeah, he's getting h5 in on move 14. 15, he's playing h6, and then here on move 14, no, 15, h6. Interesting. So it's almost this. It didn't really make a difference somehow in the move order. So g takes, so not too different, but the difference is that the king placement. Oh, and maybe it must have understood, Leia, of course, that it doesn't need this. It didn't want to double the pawns. So by having the king here, it's able to break back with the bishop if it wants. And it's less decisive because the king is here. So it's not on g8. It made a lot more sense to double, and the king was a target already on g8. So you see the nuances there, right? Okay, so just centralizing, looking at the night. Just improving its pieces. I like that.
Yeah, that rook move's nice.
Wait a second. So there's a game from 2020. They copied this game. They were copying the line. They must have, maybe they knew, and they were like testing it out. Like, this is the theory. Although I'm not really sure. I maybe it's because, I mean, hey, they're using Stockfish's moves. Although I guess Stockfish got stronger and now it has a neural network, right? If
Yeah.
they-
How many lines will a
then
master
it's
know?
like, hey, that looks cool. Let's get a neural network too. What's that?
How many lines will an expert or a master know?
Oh, I imagine that. Well, the thing is, it's not like, yeah, it could branch off too. So it might be like pretty much the same line, but it might just be like, oh, in this variation, you know, it might be a difference of one move. So if you want to call that a different line, I mean, many thousands, I assume,
I see.
depending on how bookish they are, but you learn them. I mean, like for me, I don't try to memorize them, but I've just seen them. If I see it once, I have a feeling about that. I have, like, I memorize stuff from high school, but I've played it a lot. So I still remember a
So
lot.
you would say like at least 2,000, maybe 3,000, or
Yeah, it's kind of like how many, well, it's many more than vocabulary words, because like how many
Yeah.
vocabulary words does an average English speaker speak? What is it? A few thousand?
yeah,
And then if you're really learned, maybe what, 20,000 or something?
yeah, correct.
Leah,
Okay,
you might know about that since you're an academic. Oh, Leah's coming back. Then I'll ask her. She just left.
okay.
Oh, because she usually has to leave at 2. Oh, I didn't see something. Oh, okay. Leah. Oh, hey, Leah, you're back, right?
My computer ran out of power.
Oh, you're able to stay a little later today anyway, right?
Yes.
Okay, cool. I was literally just asking you, because I know you guys have different specialties, like, yeah, you guys all have different specialties. So like we were talking with Andrew about the computers. So yeah, in terms of language, we're saying, Richard was asking how many lines does a typical master expert know? I mean, probably more than vocabulary words, because isn't it like maybe an average? Well, it depends how educated they are. It might be a few thousand. If they're like maybe what, a few thousand if they're not as well educated. Really educated, what, 20,000 in the ballpark of 20,000 or what? 15, 20,000 maybe. I mean, depends how many synonyms you want to remember, but in terms of recognizing words, or maybe you're looking it up, I don't know. I'm gonna guess 20,000 ish.
Wow.
Somebody who's like very educated. But yeah,
Yeah,
so
sounds like a good
so
guess.
it'll be similar to like a novice or like a regular club chess player. But then again, some regular, you know, kind of 1,500, like, you know, mid-range intermediate player, they might just want to remember a lot of lines, but it doesn't mean that they use them that well, right? Whereas the master might not need to remember a ton of lines. Like they could play like Capablanca, like D4, C4, E3, or Bishop G5, E3. Like that's pretty
So
straightforward.
I did look it up.
Yeah,
It's
they're really good.
with
They can get it.
Google.
Uh-huh.
It says 1 to 3,000 words, everyday conversations, 4 to
Wait,
10,000.
you said what did you say? How many?
Everyday conversations, 1 3,000 words, 4 to 10 advanced language users.
So it could be more than 10 if you're like really advanced.
Yeah, correct. Correct.
Interesting. Yeah, because there are so many words in the dictionary, but a lot of them are not really
Or
applicable.
more than 10,000 per them at the fluent.
What's that?
More than 10,000 is considered fluent. I didn't know that.
Oh, just fluent.
Yeah, I didn't know.
Because you can be conversational. Like if you're English as second language, like you could be it's kind of like me learning Spanish. Like I don't know that. Like probably one to a few thousand, maybe 1 to 2,000 or less.
Yeah.
Probably less.
Yeah.
But so I'm more like conversational.
Yeah.
I took some grammar composition class, but yeah, not
wow.
a ton. But yeah, I know chess terms now, but still, they're only like I needed to memorize like maybe 30 chess terms, right?
Yeah.
But yeah. So you can get pretty far. But if you're really well educated, you know a lot of Latin roots and stuff, then what? Probably more than 10,000.
Yeah, correct. Correct.
Leah said from earlier. So this was from the book on creative. What is it called? Creative thinking in chess or something? Creativity in chess.
The other book was Evaluate Like a Grandmaster.
Oh, that one. The authors of 4 types. This one you're talking about: evaluation, visualization, comparison, and quartets, i.e., presenting 4 related but different positions and evaluated them all.
Fluent is 10,000
that's like what a computer.
words.
That's like what a computer does. Like they talk about, like it'll look at multiple scenarios that may arise. Well, which a human would do too. Yeah. You have different. Again, you don't have to calculate everything. Then you just think of different ways. You might calculate a few lines, but you start looking at even earlier, like long range, kind of rough calculation. visualization, you visualize where things are going to go, and then you evaluate that because that's intuitive because you can't know everywhere it's going to go, but you have a sense like, hey, if I enter this type of end game with the doubled pawns, I'm thinking of various piece setups that may or may not exploit those pawns. Richard, are you saying something else?
Oh, supposedly the consensus 10,000 words is fluent.
So that just fluent, yeah. So that means if you're like
Yeah.
like PhD in English, let's say,
Yeah,
probably more than
20,000.
20, probably more than 20.
Yeah, correct.
That's not
Correct.
very
Correct.
well.
Correct.
That's English PhD. Like
Okay.
you're like working from Shakespeare.
Okay.
Some like old English stuff, right? You're bringing that in, some Scotch or whatever.
So master will know about 10,000 lines. I mean, 5,000 lines or expert.
No,
like
I was
you
going to
do.
say, I think, well, if an average person knows 5 to 10,000 words, maybe, I don't know.
Yeah.
Then maybe, yeah. So, yeah, I don't know. Club player depends, right? Depends how, but you can be pretty good probably knowing like 500, several hundred lines.
Yeah.
But you don't even realize how many you're memorizing, right?
Yeah.
You'll memorize, like, it might just be a few moves in, like, oh, I know what the Banco Gambit is. I don't play it, but I know a few moves in. I know it can vary a bit. And I know there's like this aggressive line. I know you can accept the gambit. You can shove the pawn forward and refute it. You can ignore it entirely.
Yeah.
But I'm not, there's a difference between knowing that they exist and mastering them.
Yeah, correct.
So then it's like, how many have you cooked up with a computer? How many have you, anyway, yeah. So that's an interesting.
Okay. Okay.
So, but yeah, I imagine many thousands, probably maybe similar to vocabulary.
Okay.
So Rook G8, Rook H5. That would be very interesting. I'm sure there's been a study on that, or at least a prediction. Okay, Queen G7.
Does
Can't quite serve
in
it.
this
Can't really
one
serve
does
it.
Bishop B5 not work? If you go back.
But again, it's the kind of thing where the king is probably going to move. It can move if you induce it to. But do you really want Bishop B5? You don't want to trade. Oh wait, you would want to trade if you got B7. In principle, you wouldn't want to trade, but yes, tactically you would.
Okay.
That'd be great. That'd be great. And
Yeah, I don't know if it'll actually work. But...
Yeah, but I think they're just going to play King F8 now. So
then
you got Bishop B4 check. Then they go King G7 to HA. I don't know, maybe kind of like we looked in the last.
Yeah. Game. Okay. No problem. Yeah. Okay.
No, but yeah, I guess that's why I didn't do it. You can see what does Stockfish think about how he got in trouble? It says, oh wait, whose move is it? It's not it. So Rook H5 was played, but for example, Bishop check. I'm going to guess King F8. Whoa, really?
Okay, it's a mistake.
I thought about that for a second. I'm like, really? You want to give it the B pawn? That's crazy. It says
okay, so it's a mistake.
It says -.8. What if King F8? It likes white better with the Bishop B4 check. There's the thing you were concerned about. Is this just bad? It says equal. See, it's not that big of a deal. You could do that. This is the human line. Again, as a human, I would. I don't think I would. That's a cold. I call that cold-blooded. If you need to, fine. Well, the main thing is that it trades off your bishop, which is bad. But
it might be a blitz line.
You can play E5 later. It might be blitz. You said
it might be a blitz line.
No, I wouldn't. No, the blitz move is the natural one. I wouldn't do it in blitz.
Oh God, I wouldn't want my king on C6.
It might be a blunder because you're gonna get your king's coming out. They're gonna like get that queen. And yeah, no, you might lose in blitz from that. No, I mean you just have to go back. It's literally saying king C. That is
king C6. Yeah, no, thank you.
That's like the game that we looked at of yours. Right?
Yeah.
That's like the game that we looked at of yours, Nikki, right? But it was, but the point is, you did that. You would do that because it would win a piece. This doesn't win a piece. This loses some pawns. I don't know what the computer's doing, but that's why that's why you would test it out. Again, is this somewhat reasonable for human? No, it's not. Is this reasonable for human? Yes. Is it good enough? Yes. It has a 0.3 maybe difference, 0.3, 0.4 difference. But we're not going to play the best moves. Almost certainly, we're not going to play the best moves.
No, not with that kind of pressure. And
well, this might be concrete, but what if F3 or something? Is that there's like a check maybe with the knight, and then black is winning. Well, then black gets in.
Okay, that's why. That's why.
I don't know. This is a crazy.
That's why.
Insane.
It's able to think.
This is like
that far down.
Yeah, that's craziness. That's
able to think that far down. Okay.
So anyway, Here's what happened. But good question. It's interesting. Well, now we know what it suggests. But I do think, as we can see, it thought it was better for white. And then it's like 0.8. It's like, oh, actually, well, that was like after 5 seconds, letting it analyze for 5 seconds. It's very, I mean, then it really needs its neural network to go to work. Right? All right, queen g7, queen f3. But now this is interesting. This is right about the time in the book where they say, you know, sure, it's good for white, but this is where it finds this incredible defense. See, it says like +1 for white. Yeah, I'm going to move it away from the computer now. Well, we don't need, I wonder how much depth, the depth of this position is based on analysis that Stockfish has already done on its own position or not. Because certainly it's thought about this after the fact, but I wonder whether that made it. Well, I assume that it's got to be that AlphaZero made Stockfish way stronger. I mean, now it has a neural network. It's like, hey, let's do that, right? I'm sure the game's strength and AlphaZero affected its code, right? Its formula. All right, so there it is. Yeah, it's a little funny to me. Like, why is it inducing E5? Somehow it feels like that's weakening something, like D5. That's hanging. No, I mean, it's getting a tempo now. I mean, it's attractive in terms of, look at white's pieces though. Although they have to, they then again, maybe Stockfish will recommend like letting them take on G2 and like, yeah, letting them check and block, who knows what. But again, from a human perspective, let's not do that unless we know it works. Because you can block, like I talked about in the previous game, you can go king G2 to H1 because you're winning. Again, it's all about, can you justify it, right? Based on your own attack. It's a balance there. This is so weird though. This is computer moves, right? Very, see, actually so far the game is pretty understandable. Made sense, right? Natural and active moves. AlphaZero's got good pieces.
I don't like that move at all. I think it's crazy. You're just walking into like a, you know, the queen's walking right into
this move.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Why is she walking in front
Yeah,
of
it's
the
no,
bishop?
it's provocative. Well, you have like rook e5 check lines.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, it's provocative. But then the bishop.
Okay.
No, see, I remember looking at that. I was like, wait, what's going on? There are bishop 6 check and then rook takes
I
b7
see.
lines and rook sack lines. All that's what it's aiming. So again, that's intuitive. That's using its neural network, right? It's not. I heard a terrible explanation on NPR though. All they talked about was like shooting hoses. You could tell me, Andrew. They said let me break it down for people. It's like spraying a hose through multiple screens. It's like filtering. Okay, that doesn't talk about how it like mimics neurons, does it? Isn't it, Andrew? Isn't it mimicking like connections in the human brain?
Yeah, that's the idea.
Yeah, that's how I would sum it up based on my limited knowledge in one sentence. And it was proposed. I looked it up. It's proposed a long time ago, but now they're actually doing it. But that allows it to be intuitive, effectively. So it may not, again, human intuition, like we talked about a lot today, and we see AlphaZero doing this. So it may not be that it actually leads to anything concrete. It says that computer says it's fine, I think. Wait, this is crazy. So these people, just maybe it was a joke. These two people, they played a game and they just followed the exact same game. They're like, hey, let's just play out the game. Let's just maybe. Oh, they did it as a joke in a tournament. I bet you, because they probably were planning to draw anyway, like GM draw kind of thing, or IM draw 2400. And they're like, let's just play. Let's just look at the game and play it out and get a draw, because you're not allowed to do a 10-move draw or something, which is lame. But that's kind of funny. I'm guessing that's what they did, because they literally thought we're on move 22 and they.
That'd be tough to memorize the whole thing though.
I mean, for IMs, like they'll just.
Oh yeah, I guess not.
Go
Yeah,
through it.
I would have a little.
Just go through it. It's like memorizing a play or something, right?
Yeah, yeah.
Or
Okay.
like a short play. So C3 takes B6. So it ends up utilizing. I mean, it's such a weird move though to let them take the bishop. But again, this is where it's very creative and is able to come back. It looks terrible. Look at this. It loses a piece. Stockfish loses a piece, but still holds. But the point is, in terms of getting your attack, clearly, let's look at it like here. I'm sure a lot of people would win, like from around here. And the computer, yeah, it was like 0.5 to 1 up. It's good. It clearly agrees that it's good for white. I'm sure AlphaZero thought it's good for white, but then there's just this innovative defense. So what are we at? About equal material. Wait, 4. Well, you can win a little bit pawn wise. Black's still up, but the pawns are messed up. So white's pawns are cleaner than in this case. And then okay, so this is critical. So queen e2, d5. It said AlphaZero has orchestrated a dangerous attack, but amazingly Stockfish finds a resource that allows it to draw. So you have to watch out for rook e1. If the queen takes on d2, you probably just smash through this move. That looks too strong. Right, that looks very strong. I guess, yeah, if you push, I don't know, there's like queen in and stuff, too much. It's just too much. So this doesn't work. So there's another move. Oh, I just played it. Oops. Bishop h3. It actually makes a lot. Well, wait, they're hanging their bishop though to the queen. It's crazy, right? Well, why? Okay, instead of finding the move, let's find out like why did it do this? And it allows rook e1 to get the queen, but it has its own play. So the question is though, why did it hang the? Oh, but if you take the bishop, then it takes. It's some deep idea of like where it wants the queen or something. It's crazy. This is the resource though, so I guess I'll write down brilliant move.
Oh wait, so it's just trading the bishops, but indirectly.
Yeah, but somehow there must be a difference. Oh, maybe it said there's like a e5 check. No, there wasn't. No, the bishop's on e6. I don't know. There's something about, I think it's that it prefers the queen on h3 than h2 for some deep reason, some series of checks or something. Well, if you're on here, you can get queen d7. This is crazy. So rook e1 is played to get the queen, but then they just liquidate. But after liquidation, so they take the, okay. So take with check, queen takes, take with check, takes, and black is down a piece. But black still has extra pawns. So the extra pawns saved him, even though the pawns are very fragmented, but yeah, it's crazy. 3, 6. So wait, black is currently up 2 pawns. I mean, this is going to fall easily. This is going to fall. So they're not even up that many pawns.
Yeah, like what's happening here?
I don't know. They hold. Computer says draw.
Wow.
Rook c8, draw. Well, the counterplay, this pawn is not taken yet though. Is there a way, and you could try to do stuff with the pawn, and it ends up, the key is that it ends up winning this pawn somehow, and then ends up getting the bishop back or something, or has enough to hold off the bishop. Plus it has like the 2 pawns versus this pawn. So the king and pawn endgame is actually maybe winning for black if you liquidate. So white had to be careful there. So black it actually came down to a crazy, so we had to see again, like for all intents and purposes, is very strong for white, but a computer game found like the perfect defense where it ends up holding off a pawn in ends up holding in a pawn race at the end. That's crazy. But the other thing would be, okay, natural move, queen takes. What was the other move? Yeah, if you take right, wait, where are we? D5 was played. No, this was played already. Yeah. So it's queen e2, d5. Well, you don't take, then that's just losing because there's no count. Oh wait, no, is that the same? Is there a difference here? It's almost the same. Might be slightly different based on piece placement. I don't know, but still a draw. Still a draw.
Wow.
I'm almost liking black for a second. No, it's anyway, slightly different piece placement. So rook e1. Wait, is that one? No, that's wait. What was I looking at? There was the wait, after d5, what was the difference? It was bishop h3. So no, if instead this had happened.
Was it rook e1?
Oh, if rook e1 right away. No, that's what happened. Oh, this one. Oh, right. So the point is that the bishop goes here and grabs the pawn actually instead of this. I wonder if there's still something. Oh, you just take. Yeah, you don't do rook e1, you just take then. Easy. And then we get the attack we want, and that's probably done on the spot. That's got to be bad. And then I don't know, it's got to be something here. I don't know, there's like some weird, maybe now we do like a rook lift.
That's what I was thinking.
And then you have mate ideas here, something, or even I was gonna look at you just take. Oh, you take with temp queen, and that's nasty. That's got to be winning. And the queen can't cover the diagonal. You go here, you lose the queen. Anyway, that's lost. That's lost. Probably like what, +7 or something. +5.2. Okay, but yeah, it's winning. So and try to think like the computer in the evaluation, because I usually they say higher than it is, than it seems. But that's a brilliant move. It's just, well, yeah, it's something about, I don't know. It's no, the other thing is that it does the exchange, but it doesn't allow it to take on E6 to break things open more. That's probably part of the calculation that it does there, the evaluation it makes. It's crazy though. Reminds me of like Ivan Chuck, where it chucked, when Ivan Chuck chucked the bishop on the side, sacked the bishop, and then ended up like winning against the bishop with the pawns and allowed the king to tempo and allowed the king to come in with like multiple pawns against the bishop. So rook takes, but in this case, it's multiple pawns against the bishop to hold, not to win. I mean, certainly,
Yeah, this one's crazy complicated. Like,
yeah, this just barely holds. Has to calculate, but for a computer, this pure calculation is a little easier. This is where it thrives. But now it's going to go A5. I don't know whether, I'm curious, does it make a difference if they go A5 first? It doesn't make a difference. No, I mean, you're going to B5 anyway. It's interchangeable. That would be interesting though. If that moved aside, I don't think so. Okay. That's the kind of stuff computers want. But yeah, now the problem is that the bishop's going to have to give itself up for the pawn, and white doesn't have time. That's the key though. White doesn't have time to win these guys and then promote, because the king is able to come over, and then yeah, even if the pawn pushes, but the king is just close enough to be able to hold. You'll see. Actually, white can lose if they're not careful in the end game. They're kind of shuffling a little bit. I don't know, randomly shuffling back. Oh, probably inviting a repetition. So the pawn is kind of scary though, because the pawn is deep. I almost thought is like, wait, how are they holding this? But the king just makes it in time. Yeah, it says known draw.
known draw.
So, oh, the problem is, so we go H5. That's what happened. It was just so just in time. Both queen, and then it was a draw. I mean, I don't know. The king went here. It doesn't really make a difference because we're both queening. I guess it didn't need this move, but push.
Well, my dumb self lost in this position to a skewer.
Right. That's what, maybe, I don't know whether it makes a difference.
No, I don't think it's his position, but
yeah, it's not going to get skewered. Bobby Fischer, right? Searching for Bobby Fischer.
yes, yes.
I'm like, or the king would have to be there. Or whatever.
Yep.
I wonder sometimes
that's
though,
great.
I wonder sometimes if this is like the ideal or the platonic ideal of the game, to have these two superpowered computers fighting off against each other and then ending up with the exact same, so like basically then end up in a stalemate, like because they're just so much more powerful than humans. It makes me feel like the ideal is just a stalemate. If that makes any sense.
almost like
Yeah.
almost like a camaraderie, like an agreement among the computers, like, hey, we're both amazing. the brotherhood or sisterhood or whatever. But yeah, well, the point is, have they solved chess, or have they solved it, and have they solved it enough to the point that they don't lose? Is it a draw ultimately? Does white's first move confer a great enough advantage that white can win? Sometimes. But I think the thing is that it can't say everything. It just can't, that just shows the subtlety of the game. Like, for example, because you can always create imbalances. That's the thing. You can always create an imbalance. For example, pieces clash. You can create almost certainly like, knight versus bishop scenarios. And I don't know, it's just, is it possible? You'd have to, it's one thing to foresee all the moves, but it has to properly evaluate every possible line that it's a draw between the knight and the bishop. Maybe there's one subtle thing that allows the knight to be better than the bishop. And then there's some amazing line, like in that line, like of millions of lines, there's one amazing line that allows the knight to slightly edge out the bishop, and then it wins in some, just like as miraculous as Stockfish was able to draw. So that's the thing. It's just such a difficult problem to solve. I mean, it's the
there's a research paper I saw.
We're in the laboratory of the 64 squares. It would be kind of like solving understanding everything about like trying to project climate change or something, or the exact, trying to project the weather. There's so many variables. Obviously, there's way more in the weather of unknowns. What's that?
I saw a research paper that claims that chess is a draw if you play perfectly.
Yeah, arguably, but I don't think they've solved it enough to know that they can, to prove that, to say that affirmatively. You know what I mean?
Yeah, I have to take out the paper.
Huh?
I have to dig up the research paper.
Yeah, but even if, I mean, they can claim that, whatever it is, you can make the claim even without reading the paper, but I could say that you can't, your claim is only as good as what the computers can prove. You know, so you'd have to have something that's as good as AlphaZero that can draw every time. But even then, if AlphaZero isn't perfect, you know what I mean? You would have to have perfect computers. But then again, you wouldn't know if they're perfect computers, right? If they're both, because one would need to edge out the other to prove that it's, but we may not know if they've reached the, we can't perceive that they've reached the ultimate, you know what I mean?
That's not quite right, David.
Why is that?
There are mathematical ways to prove a game is a draw or a win for one side or the other.
I beg to differ because it's more, well, it's more,
You're not a mathematician
it's more
either.
provable. Well, yes, I agree. They're there, right? But are they solved? Have the computer solved? Now, if we're talking about this end game, this is mathematically stockfish solved from here that it can hold, right? But yeah, I agree. Mathematically, it's all there. But the question is, have the computer, but that's based on, in a way, this qualitative, that's the tricky part, because there is some qualitative measure, or maybe that's the intuitive aspect that allows you to kind of home in on what the correct formula is. But you know what I mean? It would have to be, you can, it's probably solvable. Has it been solved? You only know, I don't know when you know. How do you know if
I think chess supposedly has 3 times 10 to the 123rd degree permutations.
Right.
So
So
the Shannon number.
that's strong. But again, that's just to see, that's the problem. That's just to see all the possibilities. Beyond seeing the possibilities, it has to have accurate evaluation of every single one. That's just, I don't know.
And
Maybe computers are great, right, Andrew? Computers are really strong, but are they that strong yet? I don't think so.
the Shannon number actually says up to 35 moves, it's 10 to the 50th power.
Yeah, and combine that with all the proper evaluation needed every single move.
So
of knowing every single possible complex endgame that can arise. That's where it's solved, Matt. If you arrive there, Matt, that's where you mathematically have solved it. But
so after 4 moves,
you got to correctly get there first.
There's 288 billion moves after 4 moves.
Yeah,
after 4,
I don't know, Andrew. Do you think? I mean, at least now, I mean, again, you can say, oh, it's been solved, but computers are not as strong as they could potentially be, right, Andrew? There are limits. Are there not? We can't just say,
yeah, there are limits.
well, I mean, I guess a technologist would like to claim that they can always be stronger, of course, right?
Well, I mean, I wasn't saying that they have solved chess or not solved it.
Yeah, we agree then. We agree then.
I'm just saying that there are means, maybe I misunderstood what you said a while ago, but there are means to do what they call solve chess, which will solve a game. Like
they can attempt to based on the math, but we don't know yet. But there's a formula. There is a formula out there, which is astronomical. It is out there, but since we don't know that formula yet, we don't know whether that would mean that white's tiny edge from the opening would ultimately lead to a win or not. We don't know yet. It's not there yet. It's kind of like the question of God. We can get to the question of God now, but I mean, ultimately, we don't know. You can get it. So I would argue for an agnostic chess understanding. Which is the only based on our limited knowledge to be
even if it is solved,
be humble enough. Agnostic chess technologist. Okay.
Well, that's the next thing to come, David.
What's that? Oh, the religion
Yeah, the
of
agnostic.
The agnostic
that's
chess game.
The what?
We like the agnostic name. We think that's good.
But what's the next thing, Lynn, to come? Is the like religion of chess, basically, like different views on chess as a religion, or computers as a religion, or both?
I don't know. Agnostic chess.
No, but the earliest Kaisa, the poem Kaisa would be an early example. I forget when it was written, but that would be a good example of that, kind of like romanticizing chess, maybe bringing in the notion of a deity, like a goddess. There's some
being like Kaisa,
right? That's very much a religion kind of view.
and you know, those of us who are old enough to remember certain movies with Kevin Costner and from the 1980s remember the Church of Baseball, right?
Yeah, I mean, anything. A cult can form around anything. I mean, anything that brings together community can be perceived as a religion. It gives you meaning. It brings people together in community. And then
I've read about cults that revolve around Harry Potter, Final Fantasy VII, Gadget from Chip and Dale's Rescue Rangers.
oh wow.
I mean,
So is that religion? Does that become arguably religion? Now you can argue whether the religion's true or not, or whatever, but or whether you think it's worthy. But would you say that can fall into the category of religion, however you define it?
well, in the field of religious studies, there's kind of no definition, no set definition.
Is there like a spaghetti hat religion?
A what?
A spaghetti hat religion?
Yeah, that's like a joke, I guess. That's probably
Oh,
like
the flying
probably like an
spaghetti
atheist-
monster.
probably
Yeah,
Spaghetti
flying
monster.
spaghetti monster. Pastafarian, yeah, that's
right.
right.
I think that's
It's-
probably like an atheist joke. Like,
It's not
Yeah.
a complete joke. The point is to show that, you can have a religion.
But see, that's
You
the
know,
way
or
it's the way-
a critique, maybe I'd say. But
It's like
Right.
the way American religion is structured, is that basically if you say you're a religion, then you are for tax purposes. And
right.
as I said, in the field of religious studies, there's no set definition of religion, because previously when people tried to define religion, or even when people on the street do, it has a very Christian and particularly a Protestant bias. So there's this idea that religion involves believing in God, but there are lots of, or a deity, let's say. But there are lots of religions.
Does religion resolve around afterlife though? Do the spaghetti folks believe in an afterlife?
That they do.
I don't know, but it's part of
There's
religion
a-
involved.
And at any rate, it could be anything, really. That's the point. As to whether you're an ardent Christian or whatever, but yeah.
Yeah.
But
And
you
the
could
thing
argue.
is that for tax purposes, we could start our own church of chess, and then
International Church of Chess.
Yes.
probably someone would have an issue, and then they'd split off to form second church of chess. But and then there'd be more splits.
Yeah, we have two branches, E4, G4, right?
I'll take the tax break though.
Hey, what about C4?
Oh, it was
third
just
one.
mushroom.
Well, then you're getting into some Anglo religions.
That's funny.
Well, I guess we'll leave it there, guys. That's a good
Okay.
finish.
Thank you so much, David.
Yeah, that's
as
so when you
always.
start getting into computers, though, it's all encompassing. It's very
Okay.
interesting.
All right.
Absolutely.
Yes. Thank you,
Yeah,
David.
great
Bye,
discussion, guys.
everybody.
Hopefully that was
Have a great
helpful.
weekend, everybody.
Hopefully by looking at this crazy stuff from the computer, it helps you understand the comparison.
It helps me a lot, David, because our brain is a computer, and we can compute more than what we think we can compute in our brain.
Right.
So if we focus on it, like we focus on studying the lines, we can enlarge our brain and make our brain compute a whole lot more, to, like Andrew said, to 50th degree or something. We just got to know what we are. We are a computer. Our brain is a computer.
Right, the electrical connect and everything. Yeah, it's just, and that's what the computers are trying to do, to mimic us. They're trying to basically mimic us, but to the nth degree, the incredible power.
Yeah.
But still, we have they got close with the neural networks, right, Andrew? But still, I imagine you think that there's a lot more progress to be made, right? Because the human mind is incredible, and it's the moral, but we bring in like notions of morals or the ability to bring a lot together. Again, that's what neural networks are trying to do, to pull everything together to make sense of the world. But we're pretty good decision makers in a lot of ways. So, and we're creative, but of course it's trying to mimic that. But it is pulling from human culture too, right?
Yeah.
So.
Bye, David. Goodbye, everybody.
All right, guys.
Thanks,
Have a
David.
good weekend.
No class
Thanks,
next
David.
week, right?
What's next week? MLK weekend?
The Rockville quads.
Oh, and the quads, MLK week. No, wait, no, this is MLK
This
weekend.
is-
But
This is MLK weekend.
yeah, Monday, and then next week is the quads. I want to play in that. Yeah, I haven't played in anything other than the evening games in DC Chess League. So yeah, I'm gonna try and do that.
Okay.
Maybe we can join, Andrew could join virtually or something, because Richard's behind that as one of the organizers in Rockville Chess Club.
Yeah.
So Andrew, maybe we can Zoom you in for a few minutes or something. All right, take care, guys. Good
So
luck
you said
next
no class
weekend.
next week then, okay?
Huh?
No class next weekend then.
I guess so. Yeah, I guess not. All right, guys. Great. Yeah, great discussion. I'll see you guys.
Yeah, we have a good weekend.
You too.
Okay. Okay. All right.